Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls, and you're listening to Rainbow Country.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, award-winning best-selling author Michael Bach joins me to talk about Alphabet Soup, the essential guide to LGBTQ2+ inclusion at work. Plus, Hot Docs 2022. All that and more on episode 301, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, I'm Simone Denny.
Hi, I'm Mary John Tory.
I'm Joey Lamar, best-selling author of Mambo Lips and Salsa Hips. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's gay and lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on feedspot.com. So today, best-selling author Michael Bach is my guest and joins me to talk about his latest book, Alphabet Soup, the essential guide to LGBTQ2+ inclusion at work. Everything you need to know about creating a LGBTQ2+ inclusive workplace from A to Z. We'll find out about Alphabet Soup, ideas on creating an inclusive workplace, and so much more. Plus, coverage of Hot Docs 2022, where I caught up with the filmmakers of the South Korean gay documentary, Queer My Friends. And in Hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring some classic British 80s, some Canadian 80s, as well as some post-punk and some queer jazz. All that lies ahead as we start this little gay journey through Rainbow Country.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators' backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, best-selling author Michael Bach starts off our interview with a reading from his latest book, Alphabet Soup.
Alphabet Soup is a guide that will take you, my faithful reader, on a journey of discovery with the objective of turning you and your organization into active allies, a term I explain in the book. Like it or not, LGBTQ2+ people need allies to help us achieve that elusive goal of true inclusion. Everything in this book can be applied to a workplace and engaging with employees, as well as interactions with volunteers, customers, students, parishioners, or just everyday people on the street. When it comes to LGBTQ2+ inclusion at work and in communities, I'm always reminded of one of my favorite conversations. Many years ago, I was speaking with the head of HR for an organization located in a Western European country that shall remain nameless to protect the guilty. She was telling me about the company's work in diversity and inclusion, with no mention of work in the LGBTQ2+ communities. When I probed, she defensively explained that they don't discuss, quote, these things, end quote, at work. I looked over at a photo on her desk and asked if the man in it with her was her husband, to which she responded in the affirmative. It was a wedding photo and she was wearing a white wedding dress, so chances were good. I pointed out that the photo was a statement of her sexual orientation. I likely didn't need to ask her what sexual orientation she identified with because she had it on display. I probably should have asked, but let's focus on the point. That was an eye-opening moment for her.
Michael Bach, hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for being here, Michael Bach, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that, Michael.
It is my pleasure.
Girl, I'm sure it is. especially to talk about Alphabet Soup, the essential guide to LGBTQ2+ inclusion at work. This is your current book. Paint the picture, if you will, for us. What are you getting at in this book, your current book?
You know, I have been doing work in the LGBTQ2+ space for 35 years. I say as I pull back my face a little tighter. And I've been getting the same questions for 35 years. And I really have gotten to the point where I said, you know, I want to have an impact and I want the world to be more inclusive of my queer brothers, sisters, and cousins. Because I'm also seeing, particularly south of the border, but in all parts of the world, a real backlash against the queer community. 30 states have introduced legislation banning trans folks from participating in sports based on their gender identity. And that's today. That's not 30 years ago. So I wrote a book that is designed to educate, to inspire, to help people figuring out their place in the journey towards LGBTQ2+ inclusion.
Okay, so let's talk about some specifics.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to creating an inclusive workspace, especially for LGBTQ2+ individuals. Give me some examples that owners, managers, CEOs can do to create an inclusive workspace.
Sure. Well, there's some little things you can do, like putting your pronouns in your email signature or in your Zoom profile or Teams profile. That is a very simple thing to do, but it sends a very significant message to people who are trans and gender diverse that yours is a safe space where they can talk about their own identity without fear of repercussion. There are bigger things that you can do around policies, with making sure that all of your policies use gender-neutral language, that they make specific mention of sexual orientation and gender identity. You could have a transition policy at work. So what do you do if a person comes to you and says that they are going to be going through some form of transition related to their gender? And then there's taking the next step, because of course policies are, they're paper, right? They're only worth the paper that they're printed on. And so the next step is around education. So educating your people on what does it mean to have an LGBTQ2 plus inclusive space? How do you create safe space? These are very individual acts. And the policy doesn't really matter if someone is homophobic, biphobic, or transphobic. That it doesn't matter what the policy says. They'll be creating an exclusionary environment for queer folk. And the individual acts, though, can help to create safe space. And to do that, you need the education to understand what does that actually mean. So there's lots of things that organizations, employers can do.
And you spell that out in the book.
I do, absolutely, in great detail. Because I basically wanted to give away all the secrets. Mm-hmm. Frankly, they're not secrets. I mean, this is really not rocket science, but don't tell anybody that.
It's just
don't
good
tell
policy.
My publisher that. It's good policy. This isn't about special interests. This is about
human interests.
Human interests. It's about engagement. It's about creating workplaces where people can come to work and do their jobs and be successful and give their all and not be fearful of repercussions because they're trans or gay or two-spirit or what have you. And it is about making sure that your space is one where that person can be successful. It's about getting the most out of your people. And it really is not about the sort of special interests and the gay agenda. It's just about what's good for business.
So something else companies may benefit from is something worth apparently over $1 trillion annually in North America, and that's the pink dollar. What is the pink dollar?
Well, it's a euphemism. It isn't actually a pink dollar, although apparently some countries do have pink money. But anyway, the idea is the spending power of the LGBTQ2 plus communities, and how much value exists in that particular community. And there's an organization called LGBT GDP, which is just way too many letters for me. But anyway, and they have estimated that in North America, the LGBT spending power is somewhere in the range of about $1 trillion.
Who knew?
So, well,
apparently they did.
I think, you know what? I think we've always known that. And I think there have been assumptions made about the spending power of the queer community. But I think this organization has quantified it in a way that it says this is what it's actually worth. And, you know, those numbers are really good to have because it really, it puts something behind it, right? It's not just the pink dollar has value. It's no, this is the value it has. Pay attention.
Straight and cis until proved otherwise. What are you getting at here?
We have a default in society, and that is you are straight and you are cisgender until you come out, until you acknowledge that you are not.
Okay.
It is, we see it every day, starting in childhood. Pink toys are for girls, blue toys are for boys. There is no consideration given to intersex and trans kids and gender diverse kids. And boys who want to play with pink toys and girls who want to play with blue toys experience a great deal of discrimination still today. I have to come out every time I meet a new person, because there may be the default of, I see you're wearing a wedding ring. What's your wife's name? Now, which always gets me because, sweetie, listen to my voice. I am gayer than the Easter Bunny. Who thinks? And it happens. And when it happens, I'm like, girl, what is wrong with you that you don't know that I'm just like
queer as a $3 bill?
I'm a sparkle pony, sweetie. I am gay.
Ooh, good voice.
But thank you.
Nice vibrato.
But it happens, and it continues to happen. And that's because we live in a world where you don't have to come out as straight and cisgendered. You have to come out as sexual or gender diverse.
This never occurred to me until you just said that in regards to it's the default setting for our culture, our society. It really, truly is. And I've been doing this show since 2016, and, I'm asking people, so when did you come out? And is coming out still necessary and needed? And it is right now, because the default is what you talk about, because this is a chapter in your book. Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Yeah, it is frustrating, because you go through, think about high school. I went to high school in the late 1900s, so it's hard for me to remember it. But there was always like, oh, do you have a girlfriend? Why wasn't the assumption, do I have a boyfriend? Or are you seeing someone and not applying a gender? And that was 30 plus years ago. That's stuff happening today. And it continues to be this default that in order to be queer, to be LGBTQ2+, you have to come out. You have to announce it to the world. But straight cis people never have to put up a sign and say, I'm straight. I don't know if you watch Drag Race, but I'm a big RuPaul's Drag Race fan. And on this season 14, they had their first straight drag queen, straight cisgender male drag queen. And he had to come out as straight on the show. And the awkwardness was beautiful and poetic to see the look on his eyes when RuPaul outed him as being straight. And that's what queer people have to go through. It's a societal norm.
What inspired you to write this book? Why did you write this book?
Yeah. So I wrote my first book, which is called Birds of All Feathers, Doing Diversity and Inclusion Right. It was a general pan-diversity, how do employers deal with diversity and inclusion in their workplace. In writing a second book, I wanted to write something that was more personal. I experienced a lot of bullying growing up, and epic proportions. And that led to all sorts of crap in my life. This is not therapy, so I won't share it with you. But I really wanted that to stop. I don't want kids to continue going through excessive bullying and harassment and discrimination because of their sexuality and gender. And if I could write a book that might have some small impact on that, then that's what I'm going to do. And I hope it changes some people's perspectives on the lived experiences of LGBTQ2+ peoples.
Organizations don't think about how much it costs to not create inclusive space for LGBTQ2+ folks. But the price tag can be quite hefty. There's the cost of lower levels of engagement, the cost of higher levels of voluntary turnover, the cost of recruitment, the cost of decreased innovation. And just like when I enter a wine store, that bill can add up fast. So, how do you quantify the cost? I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. Then, around 2005, someone from IBM shared a model with me. The first time I saw it, I thought, this is exactly what I've been trying to explain. And I used it to build a business case for why my employer needed an LGBTQ2+ employee resource group.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm David Pevsner. I'm a writer and an actor. My memoir, Damn Shame, a memoir of desire, defiance, and show tunes, is out now. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Canada's LGBTQ2+ archives just released Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada. Order a copy from your local bookstore to dive into hundreds of loud and proud stories and photos of historical queer life in Canada from pre-1939 to today. Get your copy from your local bookstore. Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada.
Hi, I'm Joey Lamar, best-selling author of Mambo Lips and Salsa Hips, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
So you are an award-winning author. You are a successful.
Shut up. What?
You are a successful business person. You are internationally recognized as a thought leader in inclusion, diversity, and equity, in accessibility. What led you down this path? Like, how did you end up doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So when I came out, it was 1987. I know I don't look my age, but that's because I have a team of surgeons in the other room. When I came out, it was not exactly a friendly time for my people. And my mother, bless her heart, Karen Sue, was determined that I was not going to run away and hide. So I'd always been raised with this belief that we have a responsibility to give back. And my way to give back was to give back to my community. And so I got involved with different LGBTQ2+ organizations, AIDS organizations, but it wasn't a job. No one was paying me to do this. And it wasn't until jump to 2005 when I worked for KPMG, the accounting and consulting firm, and I was in the IT consulting practice. And I had the opportunity to work with a group of 6 or 7 other people to start an employee resource group for the LGBTQ2+ population in the firm. And that's when I looked around and I started to see, oh, this is a job. People are actually paying you for this. So I went to the head of HR for the firm, Beth Wilson, and I said, listen, if the firm is serious about this diversity thing, they need full-time resources and I want the job. And she said, okay, write me a business case as to why you should be the head of diversity and what will that look like. And I went away. I think she was just trying to get rid of me, but I went away and I I wrote the business case and I gave it to her and they gave me the job. There were about 50 people with diversity in their title in Canada at the time. Like, we were a very small practitioner group. And so I figured it out as I went along, and I've never been happier. I mean, it's like this work I was always meant to do. I worked in IT for a long time, and I loved that work, but I was quite happy to do something that I feel changes lives. I feel the work I do and have done for the past nearly 20 years has really had a positive impact on people's lives in a big way. And it feels good.
So Alphabet Soup, this is your current book. In 2020, you were just mentioning you released Birds of All Feathers, Doing Diversity and Inclusion Right. An Amazon bestseller, received the 2020 Silver Nautilus Book Award. Alphabet Soup and Birds of All Feathers, are they guides? Are they how-to books? How would you categorize your writings so far?
Yeah, I would say they're guides. They're a little how-to. They're a little self-help. They're, I like to think, a little comedic. My mother thinks they're funny, so that's important. I think that this conversation around inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, around LGBTQ2+ inclusion, can be a really heavy conversation. And so I like to inject humor into it, because there's a whole bunch of science out there that says that people are more receptive to learning when they're in a good mood versus when they're in a bad mood. And so I would say that the books are kind of a combination of all of those things, that if you are a business owner, a senior executive, a middle manager, if you run a hospital, if you are, a clergy, you can pick up these books and they can help you to create inclusive spaces. They can give you the building blocks so that you don't have to hire a very reasonably priced consultant. Because if I go back, when I started thinking about writing a book, I was trying to figure out what differentiated me from other authors in this space. And I've read two types of books in the inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility space. One is written by academics who come up with the most amazing, brilliant thoughts, none of which are actually realistic and executable. Because, of course, they're academics. They've never been out in the real work world. The second kind is written by consultants who are just trying to sell you something. So they kind of give you half the answer and then say, call me and I'll tell you how to fix this. And I said, I don't want to be either of those two things. I want to give away all of the secrets so that a small business owner could pick up my books, read them, and understand how to do it themselves and not have to ask anyone else for help. And that was kind of my focus, was make it so that they don't have to ask for help. They don't have to, phone a friend. They can just do that. There's always need for a consultant, and call me. But they really don't have to hire anybody. So that's kind of the guide of it all.
So you are a business person, you're an author. On a personal level, you're also part of the LGBT community. You're married. Growing up, did you think that you would be able to be in a same-sex marriage when you were a little person growing up? Did that enter your mind?
No. Gosh, no. Growing up, I was, and keeping in mind, I'm a child of the 70s, the 1970s, not the 1870s. I feel like I need to clarify that. I was learning a very clear message that LGBTQ2+ people were not of equal value. And when I came out and started to become more comfortable with my sexuality, we were still on the fringes. We didn't have the same rights. We couldn't get married. We couldn't adopt children. We didn't have spousal benefits. You know, we were still on the outs. And I was part of the large number of people who fought very hard to ensure that we did have the same rights and responsibility as straight cisgender people. But it never crossed my mind as a young 20-something that I was ever going to be able to marry my husband. So when it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Oh, right, this is legal. Okay.
How did we evolve this? How did this come about? Yeah.
Well,
through blood, sweat, and tears.
Absolutely. Through a lot of blood, sweat,
So
and tears.
you have seen the evolution of the LGBT community. I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. How have you seen the evolution of the community, and where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah.
Because it seems like an interesting, rocky future, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Splintering.
With that. That's exactly a good word. So, you know, when you think about the evolution of the community, we came together, all these letters kind of traveled and strapped on together. Because, of course, when I was a young little drama queen, it was just the L and the G.
Mm.
We didn't talk about the B's because that wasn't a real thing, and we didn't talk about the T's ever. And then it became LGB, and then it became LGBT, and then it's LGBTQ, and that we added the 2 and the plus, and all of these identities were a real evolution around gender and sexuality. I love that. I love that we're at such a pivotal moment. But when we start to apply an intersectional lens, we start to see separation within the community. So I am white, and I was assigned male at birth. I also am cisgender. I'm gender nonconforming, but I'm cisgender, just to confuse people. And what I've started to see is that white, cisgender, particularly men who identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community have really risen to the top. But our queer cousins of color, two-spirit folk, people who live with different intersectional lenses are not experiencing the same heyday around sexuality and gender, around our world, that white cisgender people have. I flash back to 2016 when Black Lives Matter was the invited guest of Pride Toronto. And in the middle of the parade, they decided to have a protest at the corner of College and Yonge, actually right outside my office door, to protest any number of things, but not the least of which was Pride Toronto had done, I will not say it, but very little as it related to the inclusion of Black and Indigenous people of color in the queer community. And what we saw was a huge divide, the reaction. On one hand, we had a lot of people, mostly people of color, trans folk, gender diverse, Indigenous folk, people with disabilities who were saying, yeah, go for it. This is right. We need, and Pride is a protest. And then we had another side of people, a lot of cisgender white men who said, you interrupted my parade. Okay, sweetie, I was at one of the first Pride festivals in Toronto. It's a protest. It was meant to be a protest. It should always be a protest. It's a celebration, but a protest. And I'm seeing that splinter where people who look like me are becoming part of the quote-unquote majority, and that other people are getting left behind. I think about the brutal murders of trans women of color around the world, but the numbers in the United States are staggering. And these are the moments where I really struggle with the work I do because I experience so much privilege being in the body I'm in. But I see still so much homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia in the world. So it's splinter is a good word. It's an accurate word, and it's one I think we need to pay a lot of attention to.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
So, Alphabet Soup, a critical guide to creating a truly inclusive workspace for all, regardless of sexuality, gender, identity, gender expression. Once your audiences read Alphabet Soup, is there a takeaway that you hope they come away with after they've read Alphabet Soup?
If there was just one, if I can only pick one, and I'm not great with just picking one, but move on, I would say what does it mean to be an active ally? If every person who read the book decided that they were going to be part of creating and ensuring that every space was a safe one for LGBTQ2 plus folks, if every single person did that, then the ripple effect would be massive. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do with the book, is ensure that spaces are safe and that people can exist and belong and matter and contribute how they want to contribute. And that would be the one thing that I want people to take away from this book.
Well said, well said. Well said, well done, well written.
Thank you.
Michael Bach, thank you so much for your time. And I hope I'm going to put this out and it's on tape. I hope you will come back especially to talk longer about the LGBT community and where it's heading.
I'd love to. Anytime, Mark.
At the top of the list of issues is the fact that the approach to educating on diversity and inclusion is traditionally one and done. You put everyone through a voluntary program and you're good, right? This is what I like to refer to as wrong. The first mistake is that your employee population isn't static. The average employee turnover rate is about 18%, but that can be a lot higher in some industries, like food service or retail. One food service employer I worked with had a turnover rate of nearly 75% of frontline workers. By the time you've trained everyone, you need to start back at the beginning to capture new people. And that cycle continues endlessly. Education should be part of onboarding. From the day a person starts, there should be mandatory D&I education, obviously with specific LGBTQ2+ content, driven by a D&I learning map that takes each person through a learning journey. The second mistake in the one-and-done approach is the idea that one program covers it all. If Black Lives Matter has shown us anything, it's that we have a lot of work to do to educate people on anti-Black and anti-Indigenous systemic racism. And that's just one topic. The conversation on LGBTQ2+ inclusion is constantly evolving, and so should your education program.
On Amazon.ca, Alphabet Soup has a 5-star rating. For all things Bach, michaelbach.com.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Recently, I covered Hot Docs Film Festival. Founded in 1983, Hot Docs celebrates the art of documentaries and documentary filmmakers. Queer, My Friends is a documentary about a South Korean gay man coming to terms with his homosexuality, his mental health, and his belief in God. I caught up with the filmmakers at the TIFF Bell Lightbox in Toronto, director Ahun Se and the film's protagonist, Kangwon Song, join me in conversation. So, Ahun, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
And Kangwon, hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Kangwon, let's stay with yourself. How do the two of you know each other?
It's been
like, did you know each other before the documentary?
Yeah.
So you're friends?
We met in college, 2006, 7. She's actually a year younger than me, so I got into college, and then after a year, she joined the college, and we met each other for theater group. So we did a show together, so we got to know each other. Yeah, so it's been almost 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Ahun, for yourself, why did you want to make this documentary? And before you answer that, did this actually start out as a documentary? Or were you just doing this as a project of some sort?
Looking back then, I didn't know much about what documentary is and what the process to make a documentary. But after he came out to me as a gay man who believes in God, it was a huge shock for me because I was brought up in very conservative Christian family in South Korea, and I never thought about it could be possible to be both a gay man and a Christian, because I never learned from my family and or church. So at that moment, it was like a groundbreaking moment for me, because and then I have a huge sense that it should be a documentary about him. It should be, because I wanted people to come and see him, and then they make me and then I wanted to share his story to audience, and then I trust that it would be worth.
So you are the director of Queer My Friends.
Yeah.
So, and it's I've seen the documentary, I've seen the film, and to me, the documentary is about Kangwon's story, but it's also about your friendship. But for yourself as the director, how do you see the story that you're telling in Queer My Friends? For you, what's the story that you are telling?
So I didn't expect to turn out to be a story about myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at first.
Because it's very much that.
Yeah, so I didn't expect it, and then to be honest, nothing about the film turned out to be what I expected. So for the 7 years, and after I just finished the film, I have a huge after finish the editing, then I came to realize that it is about the friendship. Yeah, it's just not about one's identity or one's journey, or it's also about the friendship two people who wants to know about more each other and willing to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Did you just say it took 7 years to make this documentary?
Yeah. Well, since the first day I grabbed the camera and then asked him how would you feel if I make a documentary about him, and then he said like maybe half and half. Half was a joke. Yeah, and then he said yes without thinking much.
So Kangwon, for yourself and being part of this documentary and having this documentary revolve around you, why did you want to be part of this? Why did you want your story told? Or did your friend talk you into it?
She definitely did. But like she said, we never knew how it's gonna turn out to be at that moment. So I didn't think that much, to be honest, and I didn't know at that moment it's gonna take 7 years. Yeah. So I wanted to do something with her because we always talk about like many things. We even if like because I was in the States and she was in Korea, we talked to each other like good like an hour and 2 hours, just on and on. Yeah, so she's that kind of friend to me. So when she suggests something, I would just, yeah, why not? Like, let's do that. Yeah, so I didn't.
And plus, too, the two of you have a performing background because you said that you were in school for theater.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so your story plays out in this film, in this documentary. You're in South Korea. You moved to the States. You joined the military, the army. I think you get deployed to Germany. And then you move back to South Korea. And then you move back to the States. And your story is being told in this film, in this documentary. When you see this, when you see your life story being played back to you, what goes through your mind? You're sitting there as an audience member watching your life.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question.
Because you know, when you die, they say your life flashes before you. You're not dead, but you kind of had that experience.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel very privileged to have that experience with my friend. And actually, it was my first time to watch the movie in theater yesterday. Last night was my first time. So it was as if almost I was watching somebody else, like not myself. But with that frame, I was able to see myself, like, because sometimes you're your own biggest enemy to yourself, right? So I have been really harsh on myself in many ways.
And that plays out in the film.
Yeah. So I had definitely struggles as you watch the film, but I learned from watching a movie about me, but almost as if it's a different person, like different human being. I learned that how my friends actually see me, very dearly, very lovely. So I got to learn how to love myself in a way my friends actually do. So that's one thing that I learned or I got to experience through watching the documentary film about my life of 7 years. 7 years of my life.
And did you just see this for the first time the other day?
I actually
or with an audience?
Yeah, it was the first time with an audience okay. And a big screen like that. Yeah. Like I can see my pole on the face. So yeah, it was quite interesting. It was such an experience. I couldn't find the words, to be honest. Yeah.
So, Ahun, I'm going to... Okay, so in the film, there are scenes, I guess it's at a South Korean gay pride festival, and you guys are there filming each other, filming your story, and around you have people yelling, homosexuality is a sin. You've got, religious fundamentalists around you. During those scenes, did you feel comfortable shooting there, or is that why you shot there, to show that side of things, like the homophobia?
Yeah. When I was when I attended queer parade in Seoul for the first time with Kangwon, I was shocked and surprised by the aggressive and homophobic group in South Korea, and they are based on Christianity. Yeah, so the reason why I shocked is like I'm the one who brought up in church family and church culture, and I'm so used to it. And every Sunday I had listened that like homosexuality is a sin. And then the reason why I shocked that the festival is like maybe I could be the one of them. Yeah, without Kangwon, without he came out, if he didn't come out to me, maybe I had no chance to think about how it is aggressive to others. So that's the thing I shocked by myself inside of me. So I remember that moment because in my inside of me there was a huge conflict between but I learned from church and I believe in God, and then still believes in Bible, then it is a still sin, or in other way. But I love Kangwon and I don't think he's a sinner, and then do I have to judge him? So there is a huge conflict inside of me. Yeah, but then I think I'm a little bit more liberated from myself and my judgment and my prejudice about it. So and then that's the main reason why I want to make this documentary, because I think people need to have opportunity, think about it. Because if they don't know LGBTQ people around their ordinary lives, then they don't have any chance to think about it because they are used to it. Yeah.
And Kangwon, for yourself, growing up gay in South Korea, what's the atmosphere like there for someone who's gay?
I would say I'm getting older, so I'm in my mid-30s. When I actually grew up, I would choose the word non-existent. I never learned, I didn't know actually what gay is until my college time. Yeah, so the atmosphere, if I have to explain, non-existent. We didn't know. I didn't get any. Of course, I didn't have anybody who's gay when I was.
Is there a gay scene in some of the main, maybe in Seoul or something? Are there gay bars?
Yeah,
or?
But now it has been changing so fast in Seoul. But back then.
But when you were growing up and coming of age, there was nothing.
Yeah, it was. Of course, there are some people, but I never had a chance to expose myself to that, and definitely that was not available to me, and it wasn't an option when I grew up in Korea. So, but you knew something inside of you is conflicting with this world. I knew that, but I didn't have the word because nobody taught me the word, if that makes sense.
And today, in 2022, you're a gay man, but you also believe in God? And how, talk to me about how you see that for yourself.
Yeah, that's just who I am. Yeah, I feel more comfortable in saying that because there was a time I had a conflict. I mean, like she said, not many people actually believes that can be a compatible, being a Christian and being a gay man. But I learned something through my journey. So yeah, I can confidently say that I believe in God, but at the same time I'm a gay man. So,
well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. New concept, huh?
So, Kangwon, for yourself, is there a takeaway that you hope audiences come away with after they've seen Queer My Friends? Is there a message? Is there a takeaway that you hope the audiences come away with after they've seen this documentary?
Yeah,
your story.
Yeah, it's about my story, but after I watched the movie last night, I can confidently say this. This movie is about relationship and friendship, and this is not about just one man, how he struggles with his identity. It's more than that. Everybody has different struggles in their lives, but the only way we can get through those struggles, just be with somebody that you care for and you're loved by. So maybe if somebody doesn't believe in love or in community, if they feel alone, I hope they can watch this movie and they're not alone. We're not meant to be alone. That's something, the message that I want to hope they feel from the movie.
And Ahun, for your, and I keep butchering your name. I'm sorry, girl.
It's okay.
But for yourself, being the director of this documentary, for yourself, is there a takeaway for you that you hope the audience has come away with after they've seen Queer My Friend?
Yeah. Adding to what he said, so when I pitched this documentary, one of the decision makers asked me how it is possible in South Korea, which is a very modernist and high technology country, and then K-pop all over the world, and then that is so gender fluid, and then how could it be so homophobic in that country? I think that's a very good question, and that's an ironic thing in South Korea, and we don't have any anti-discrimination law still, and that has been raised in 2007, but it never passed for 15 years so far. And then 2 activists is going on hunger strike right now in South Korea. So basically, I believe that no one deserves any discrimination, and then that makes self-hatred in the end. So I think Queer My Friends is a story about a journey to self-love based on the friendship. So,
between the two of you.
Yeah. So maybe, is there anyone who is too harsh to themselves and who is in the trouble with the self-hatred? Then please, I hope to say that you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to, maybe, and then there must be someone around you, so don't be alone. Yeah, that's the message I want to say.
Well said, well said. Ahun, thank you for your time. Kangwon, thank you for your time. Both of you, well said, well done, and well made.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Queer My Friends is currently on the film festival circuit, but keep your eyes open for this film when it does hit streaming.
Hi, I'm Justin Ling, author of Missing from the Village. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us, and of course our artists and the things that we do globally, and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, follow me on socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself. and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra